because I do believe that every act of love, every act of kindness changes the universe, and for the better. It changes each one of us, even if the act of love wasn't upon us or the act of kindness wasn't toward us. It still changes us because, yes, we are distinct while we are here with individuality. We are individuated expressions of source, as far as my understanding. So I always speak this way from my understanding. I'm not trying to make this a dogma or tell people how to think, but my understanding is we and I am.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing, and it's happy days are here again. I am very grateful to have the presence of this incredible being in the podcast today. I want to welcome to the podcast Chenee Fournier, a intuitive medium, an evidence-based medium, a teacher of many wisdom methods of awareness, sensory perception on all different levels, and incredible frequency. And I am hypnotized by the resonance of her presence right now. I want to welcome to the podcast, my dear friend. And you're here. We're here. It's another happy day. And how are you?
I am very well, thank you very much. And I am uplifted simply by being connected with you. So thank you for this opportunity.
It's always magnificent. It's a magical mystery ride of unification and pure communion when we have conversations like this and we meet with that resonance and we return to who we are, and that is the divinity that is the now moment. So again, I'm very grateful that you're here to spend time with us today. What I'd like you to do is just give us a little summary, an abbreviated version of how you got here.
I have been aware since early childhood that I am able to tap into multiple dimensions. Those, of course, are not words that I would have used when I was a child, because as we're growing up, we think everything else or everyone else sees what we see or hears what we hear. We just think our experience is normal until we get old enough to realize that people do think differently and do see differently than we do. But ever since early childhood, I've been able to tap into other dimensions. I've been able to see beings in other dimensions. I've been able to get guidance very clearly, intuitively. I also grew up being highly sensitive in that I was able to feel what other people were feeling. So if they were saying something to me, but their resonance coming off of them or the energy coming off of them was saying something different, then that, I recognized that. And when you're a child growing up, that doesn't always make sense why that's happening that way. But as I got older, then I just learned, well, that's being an empath. That's just being highly sensitive, highly intuitive. So I recognized very early on that if I would just listen to my inner guidance, march to my own drum, be my own person, that I would always be guided correctly. Anytime I didn't do that and I listened to what other people were telling me to do, it didn't necessarily go well. So I'm very grateful that from a very early age, I learned, listen to my own self. I will not guide myself incorrectly when I'm listening to my intuition. I also learned that I could see beings that other people couldn't perceive that were there. And I learned much later on as an adult that my mom could actually do the same thing. So I do believe that we're all born with this ability to tap into multiple dimensions because we are all occupying multiple dimensions simultaneously. But some people will shut that off. Some people will be afraid by it. Some people's families will shut that off for them. Some people just will simply outgrow it. But I just learned that these beings that are all around us in different dimensions at different frequencies, they're just waiting for us to have what I like to call a frequency ship. So we have relationships with those of us here physically. And when we're having relationships with beings that are here non-physically, that are in the spirit world, that dimension that's higher frequency than this one, a higher octave, I like to refer to that as a frequency ship. And then what I learned was, okay, well, bring those frequency ships into this physical reality so that even my relationships here can be frequency ships as well. So it's just basically learning to be with others on a frequency that allows me to be entrained to the highest expression of myself. They respond and then they raise, and then that in turn allows me to raise. And then before you know it, we can be in relationship in higher dimensions and frequency ship of higher dimensions and higher realms. So I started out, gosh, way back, probably 10 or 11 years old. I went through a phase where I thought I was going to die and go to hell. I was not raised in a family that talked about hell and damnation. There's no reason for me to have developed that fear, except for I realized later on in life, there has been at least three different past lifetimes where I did something similar to what I do now, working with people on energetic levels, energy healing, tapping into the unseen worlds. And one of those lifetimes, I was killed very violently for having those abilities
Mm.
and having things that were horrible yelled at me as I was being killed. At the same time, I also had the beings in the crowd that I had helped and who loved me dearly and who were in the crowd and watching what was going on because I told them they needed to be there so that they could not only hold the frequency of love, but so that they didn't get sought out by the powers that be for not being there. So I believe that what happened all these lifetimes later, when some kids at school said something about products that were in the home, and if we had those products by a certain corporation, that we were damned to go to hell. I think that what that did was re-enlivened that fear that was part of me at a cellular level, carrying forward from previous lifetimes. So I just really went down a rabbit hole of fear, and during that time really learned to turn inward. And over the course of time, I grew out of it. But that was also through a lot of investigations of spiritual belief systems, not really so much like hardcore dogmatic religion and religious beliefs, but spiritual traditions. And even as a young kid before this happened, I could freak myself out easily by thinking about the concept of eternity. And I would think, okay, well, whether you're eternally happy or eternally unhappy, eternity is a long time. So I have been on this particular journey since further back than I can even recollect with conscious memories. And I do think it's a carryover of coming through from past lifetimes. So I wouldn't, if you had asked me then, when I was a child, all the stuff I was going through, what was I happy for it? Was I grateful for it? I would say, of course not. But now looking back, it has really made me open and empathic and sincere and genuine in a way that I don't think I would have been had I not gone through those difficulties. And it led me on that spiritual desire of expansion. And probably I wouldn't have ended up on that in that way that early on. I do believe that it's always been my path to really open up spiritually and to help elevate consciousness in all forms, not just human. So I believe that I would have always found my way to my spiritual path. But I feel that I've really done the hard work. I've done the alchemy. And I do believe in this beautiful philosophy that's called process theology. It is the belief that everyone and everything, including source energy, is in process of continual evolution, continual ascension, continual awakening. So I believe that I was called to this path when I was, like I said, not using the language then that I'm using now, because it was just, I was ripe for this being the lifetime to really open up, to really step into my power, and to recognize that it's an inside job, that there is nothing to be afraid of, that at the end of the day, it's all this, that beautiful concept of agape love. Love is expanding, source is expanding, we expand, all expressions of consciousness expand. And then that's a feedback loop into source consciousness, which expands. And as it expands, we expand. As we expand, it expands. It's just this beautiful, gorgeous design, and I'm grateful to be a part of this. And what I love is that when I come upon others that are on a similar path to me, I can feel this expansion within every cell in my body, and I can feel this upliftment. I uplift, they uplift, I uplift, like we're entraining each other to the highest possible versions of ourselves. And then when we come to the end of our conversation, if I'm working with a client, the end of a session, the end of an interaction, even just walking out in nature, every single day for me is an opportunity to grow and expand. There's that beautiful saying in Buddhism of, take your meditation off of the cushion. And so for me, my life is, well, what can I do every day in my life to uplift consciousness, which then also uplifts me? And I love the fact that there are others on this path that have been on it for longer than me and that are more depthful in their knowledge, because then it gives me a guiding light to turn to if I ever feel lost. And then I recognize that when their light shines brightly, it calls out my light even brighter. And then it's this back and forth gorgeous feedback loop. So I'm not sure if that completely answered the question, but I feel like I've been on this journey for lifetimes. I came to it very young, and it is my soul's purpose. It is my calling. And I just really feel incredibly grateful that I get to live my life this way. And that, I mean, every day I'm still awakening. Every day I'm still expanding. If Source is expanding as far as my understanding, then of course, everything created by Source is expanding. So I just love that concept. There is no end point, there is no destination. It really truly is. The journey is the joy, the journey is the prize, the journey is the journey. And so that's probably a much longer answer than a summary, but that's what was flowing through.
No, it's an ongoing exploration of your Sherlock to your Watson as you go through the maze, the labyrinth of the finite mind, the ego, the personality, the empty, corrupted, bankrupt intellect, to find unification, to find this state of intuitive, well, as some people would refer to a physicist model of the singular, the one. All is one, one is all within a Taoist path. Understanding that reality is based only on the lens of a bellows. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. And your mission, if you choose to accept it, Ethan Hunt, is to find that center point, the vesica. This is the very access to that unification that merges that symbiosis of the electromagnetism that we call the currency of this material state, energy. That energy potential is vibratory, frequential, and then met with resonance. Oh, yes, it will be yours. Oh, yes, it will. But to obtain that is the method to the madness. The mastery of this material is through your own self-realization, the experiential moment. If you're thinking you are not knowing, if you're knowing, you are feeling. This very state of awareness is visceral, kinesthetic, somatic. It's now. And then we find self-evidence. From a Taoist path, it starts with inquiry, contemplation, curiosity. It nurtures hopium. Hopium creates and blossoms a belief system. That belief system, if met with evidence, it will become a knowing and the very seed that you need to walk forward with that expanded state of now, which is always the contemplation. Is your glass half empty or full? And with that, we call that the fa jun, the substance, the plasma. This is the super glue, as anyone that might refer to the rest in peace evidence of someone by the name of, Albert Einstein, the spooky action, the bending of reality, this substance we call a Max Planck unit of consciousness, the entanglement, quantum entanglement. Furthermore, these are all sort of definitions which we both have spoken of, which are very limited at best, yet there has to be some crumbs from your Sherlock to your Watson. Elementary, my dear Watson, through that evidential, well, evidence is the evidence-based reality of your psychic abilities. Your mediumship is a very key word that you like to use, and I like to find evidence within everything. That unification is the primordial understanding between the breath in and the breath out lies yin and yang. Yin is the absorption of all colors, yang is the emission of all colors, and that center point is what we call the Wu Ji, the primordial mother, the void, which is the womb of creation of all this yin and yang. And there lies the unification, and that unification will present itself in a serendipitous, synchronistic moment of, it's good to be you. We call this Wu Wei, effortless effort, effortless action. The action in of itself is not as limited by the infantile identification of physical movement. Breath is action, and that's where you lies that substance, that concentration of what we call absorbing the riches, the primordial mother. It saturates through the physical flesh at a subatomic level, showing you evidence of your imperium, your dominion, your maestro to this 50 trillion cells that looks back at you in the mirror, that physical flesh as identity. But is it? It is nothing more than an illusion. The way to walk is not the way. The name that is named is not the name. Tao is both named and nameless. And with that is the paradox of the human condition. And if you actually meet it in the middle, you will find a shift in paradigm that gives you the evidence of now. The power of that will be in a result of evidence that will make it true to you and self-realized. Amen to that, my friend. And where you would like to go from that, please add water at your own discretion.
I think a number of things come through, but one of the things that really comes through really strongly, and I forget who I read this from many years ago, but it really resonated when I read it, which is as far as the oneness, trying to help myself understand oneness, help others understand oneness when I'm interacting with them, is the concept that we're all distinct but not different. That if this beautiful, gorgeous playground called planet Earth is a way for consciousness to get to experience itself, to get to expand, to get to experience love, because I do believe that every act of love, every act of kindness changes the universe and for the better. It changes each one of us, even if the act of love wasn't upon us or the act of kindness wasn't toward us, it still changes us because, yes, we are distinct while we are here with individuality. We are individuated expressions of source as far as my understanding. So I always speak this way from my understanding. I'm not trying to make this a dogma or tell people how to think, but my understanding is we and I am an individuated expression of source consciousness. So I am a part of the greater wholeness, but I am not the same as everybody else in this life form. I am here as an individuated, unique expression with my own unique abilities, my own unique quirks, my own unique interests, because just as diversity is important here in this physical world, diversity is important in the spirit world, in any dimensions above this, in the beyond, in the knowing. It's all incredibly important. So I like that concept of we're all distinct, but at the essence of it all, when you really distill it down, we're all the same because we are coming from that same source. We are coming from that same point of origination. For me, it is this beautiful point of highly condensed information and light that forms into this human body that for me is Chenée. For other people, other names. It doesn't even matter what our names or titles are. But we are here as these bodies of light. Science has shown that we actually emit light. At the moment that the sperm and the egg come together, there's a thing called a zinc flash. There is actually a flash of light that takes place. So science calls that the zinc flash. It's the moment when the sperm and the egg unite and life starts developing. For me, what I've been shown on the spirit level is that that's the moment when this essence comes into this physical realm. And for me, the word that works for me is soul. And I use that as an acronym. It's the source or space of unified love. And so that's the moment that the soul, for me, comes into a physical form and then starts developing. And all of these beautiful orchestrated things have to come together for life to then be viable out of the womb and for this beautiful form to take place. And that's humans as well as non human animals. All of consciousness, as far as I'm concerned, is comprised of light. And so the beautiful thing in that is what I've been shown by the beings that I work with that are non physical. And I do refer to them as angels and spirit guides, but not the way that dogmatic religion has kind of like compartmentalized angels and spirit guides. So for me, what I've been shown is that from afar, we look like a pointillism painting that is comprised of points of light. So when you get up really close, you kind of lose the picture for the medium. And then you back up to the proper level and you see the so called picture. Then you back up even further, you see the stage that the play is played upon. You back up even further and you just see these beautiful, gorgeous beings, all comprised of light, moving around, doing this gorgeous play, having this gorgeous dance, having this gorgeous experience. But at the end of the day, light is light. It originates from one source. It expresses, it individuates, it's enfolded back into that same source at the end of the day. However, if we prefer to keep having a so called individuated experience of life, we're welcome to. Because for me, the fabric of life, the fabric of consciousness, the fabric of everything, at the base of that is love. And so love would say, okay, you want this experience, you're welcome to have this experience. You want that experience, you're welcome to. You want to go back into a physical form again, you're welcome to. You want to stay at the frequency of spirit, you're welcome. Whatever you want to do, you're welcome. And so for me, I feel like this particular life form feels like the last time that I'm going to come around in physical form. That doesn't mean I'm just going to cease to exist. It doesn't mean I'm just going to go off and just, be selfish or whatever. It means that once I'm no longer here in this physical form or appearing as a physical form, I will be in a light body form. I will be pure essence. I will be pure spirit. I will have whatever frequency ships I wish to have with other beings in spirit. And I will have that frequency ship with other beings that are still here physically. And I feel like I will be on either a team of guardian angels for others or spirit guides for others. I will be contributing into the consciousness of knowledge. I believe that whether we're talking about Einstein or Tesla or Marie Curie or any other wonderful names you want to mention, I believe that those beings didn't cease to exist. I believe that they are on teams of scientists and luminaries that are in a higher dimension that are then transmitting information to beings here in the physical realm. Some of the thoughts that I have come through that are just really expansive, I don't feel like those originated from within me. They certainly didn't originate in that gray matter in my brain. They came to me, and I was open enough to channel this energy and to channel this information. When I do the work that I do with my clients, whether I'm doing a mediumship reading or helping them tap into their higher self or getting guidance from their angels or spirit guides, the information that flows through is beautiful. It's expansive. It's heart opening. It's soul expanding. It's something that even if I were to sit there and try to imagine something, I wouldn't have imagined that. Now, I do like to point out the fact that sometimes imagination um, it gets kind of kicked around a bit, like, oh, you're just imagining that. Well, for me, when I'm tapping into these higher dimensions, I am being communicated with oftentimes in images. So those images are coming through into what the human might consider imagination, but I'm not using my volition to make things up. If someone were to say to me, imagine a brand new flower. So I would be tapping into experiences that I've had in this physical lifetime of what a flower looks like, and maybe I would create something out of my imagination that's coming from the human brain. But we can also use our imagination tapping into the imaginal realm, tapping into our imaginal cells, what we can only imagine because we don't yet maybe know that it's possible. And one example that I give is years ago when I was living by myself, I was awoken by two beautiful beings of light standing at the foot of my bed. I came to full conscious awareness. I was not in that hypnagogic state. I was not in the liminal space. I was physically awake. And I saw these two beings standing at the foot of my bed. And my first thought was, how did they get in here? I'm sure I locked my front door. But then very quickly, I made the realization, oh, they're slightly translucent and transparent. I can see through them. So very quickly, I realized, oh, okay, I'm dealing with beings lowering their frequency so that I can see them in a physical realm. And they're allowing me to see their physical presence in my room. They introduced themselves. Actually, one of them did the majority of the talking, and it was all telepathic. And he was introducing himself, and then he let me know that he and his companion were just letting me know who they were and that they were here to protect me. They were basically my guardian angels, spirit guides. I kind of use those terminologies interchangeably. So they just talked with me for a while. Then I got up out of bed and I shepherded them to my front door. Of course, they didn't leave because they're with me always. They just dissipated into a higher frequency to where I could no longer see them physically. But as we were reaching the front door, my mind is still trying to make sense of this, even though beings have appeared to me a lot in physical form. But each time it happens, of course, I use my discerning mind. Is this coming through my imagination, or are they truly here in front of me as these beings distinct from me? So I, of course, could see through them. I could see, oh, of course, yes, my front door is locked. And then I was laughing at myself that I'm still using logical mind here. So then they just basically kind of dissipated into a higher frequency and I could no longer see them. Now, the reason why I can guarantee that was not a dream and that was not me using my imagination to try to will them into existence is because they were two white men from the Wild West days with mustaches and their beige button down shirt, beige pants, and their little star, sheriff star on their shirt. Now, if someone were to say to me, if you were to make up and just totally imagine what a spirit guide for you might look like or what an angel for you might look like, I can guarantee you it would not be two white men from the Wild West days. And it would probably be some beautiful, huge, luminous being, or it would be some Amazonian woman, or it would be just XYZ, fill in the blank. It would not be two beings that just really looked very similar to what I'm used to a human form looking like, expressing anyway as a Caucasian male. So the reason why I point to that is because sometimes people can have interactions with beings in spirit and they completely discount it because they'll say, oh, that was just my imagination. But what I always invite people to do then is to figure out, okay, well, if you were to just purely use your imagination, would that be what you would have imagined? How did it feel when they were in their presence? What did they say to you? Were they using words and you could see their mouth move? Was it telepathic? So for me, when I'm interacting with these beautiful beings in other realms, and especially when I'm doing mediumship readings with people, the reason why it's important for me to bring through evidence is because when you bring that one beautiful piece of information through that is evidential for the being that, well, for me, when I'm interacting with my client, and I'll bring through something, maybe it's something they never shared with anybody else. Maybe it's something they hadn't thought about for years and years have gone by. Their whole demeanor changes. They soften, they get happier, they get lighter. There's a fair amount of holding the space for grief when I'm interacting with beings doing mediumship readings, simply because they're really hoping to hear from someone particular. They're really hoping to hear specific information come through. And when I can bring something through for them that is equally evidential, maybe it wasn't exactly what they were hoping for, but it's equally as evidential, then it gives them that knowledge. We do not cease to exist just because physical life comes to its completion. I don't ever tell people that I speak with the dead. We're not dead. We don't die. This human form at some point will stop being animated, stop being held in this integral form and shape. But we as ourselves, because we are so much more than this human form, in fact, this human form forms from our soul. It forms from our consciousness. We're not tapping into consciousness. We are consciousness. So, what I love too about bringing through evidence is sometimes, oftentimes, my clients will get back a hold of me a week later, a month later, 6 months later, and say, "Oh my goodness, now what you brought through makes complete sense. I had to check with somebody else. They didn't even know about the story that I brought through." Because sometimes people will say, "Well, how do I know that I'm not telepathically just tapping into my client and bringing through information they hope to hear?" And I know that I'm not doing that because there is a different feeling. There is a different vibration that is coming through. When I'm tapping into spirit, I will get bodily sensations. I will get what I like to call spirit shimmers. The top of my head will tingle. I'll sort of get what other people call goosebumps, and I call them spirit shimmers. Just my whole body will feel electric.
Mhm.
I can feel myself becoming more enlivened. I oftentimes sweat a lot when I do this work. So even in the dead of winter, I usually won't be wearing like a long sleeve shirt turtleneck like I'm wearing now. I'll be dressed like it's summertime because as soon as the session starts and I'm tapped into spirit at a higher frequency than this body is used to processing in everyday mundane life, I get very hot. And so if someone will ask me a question and I don't get any bodily sensations, I will say, "You know what? I'm not getting an answer for that. And I'm not going to pull someone's leg or BS them." If they ask me a question and I tap into spirit and then I start getting those bodily sensations, then I will tell them, "Okay, so here's the answer that's coming through." So what I love about that is that each and every one of us can tap into those subtler and higher frequencies. We can go up in octaves of vibration, but we don't have to function from that octave in our day in and day out life. And the reason why it's important to know the difference is because if I have a sensation of flying or have an out of body experience, I need to recognize, okay, I'm tapping into a higher octave now. So, no, don't go to the Grand Canyon and step off the edge and think that I'm going to truly fly because in my iteration of my human form right now, I'm not there yet. I can't levitate. I can't step off of high surfaces and not feel the effects of gravity. If I'm driving my car and I have a certain image start dropping in or just packets of information dropping in claircognizantly, then I need to also be able to see through that and function on this three-dimensional world or in this three-dimensional world so that I can operate my car safely. So sometimes the people that find me and I work with doing mentoring, they are having a difficulty knowing how to integrate multiple dimensions because we're so used to functioning at a slower, lower, denser octave frequency. So when they start getting these flashes of insight and start getting information coming through, they have to learn how to integrate that with their everyday life. One of the studies that I participated with was called the COPE study, and I forget what COPE stands for, but it had to do with helping people who have clairaudience learn to manage that so that it doesn't become a pathology because there is a difference between clairaudience and having so many voices come into your head that it makes you mentally off balance. And so those of us who have clairaudience and know how to manage it and know how to discern, well, what information is coming in is mine and what information that's coming in is just coming in from that soup of knowledge, that collective consciousness. It's very important to know how to discern those. And so back to kind of like that beingness of that we're all one, that's also why it's important to learn what is mine and what is somebody else's, is because if I'm just wide open and I'm just tapping into consciousness, just boom, wide open, that would be like having 1,000 television sets in my home, all tuned to a different channel and trying to discern which one do I want to listen to. So if we're all a part of this one greater wholeness, which I do believe that we are, for me, the way to really bring that down to a level that I can understand and the people who I work with can understand is we're all one family. So as opposed to saying, well, we're all one organism. Well, we are different organisms, at least while we're running around in these physical forms, but we're part of a greater wholeness. We're part of one big, huge family. And to care about how I treat this earth as a sentient being, how I treat other species as sentient beings, and how I treat rocks and trees and particles of light and molecules of water. It all matters because We're all a part of that beautiful oneness. And what I do to myself, what I think of about myself, and what I do to others and think about others, it's going to get contributed into the collective consciousness, and it's going to affect others either beneficially or harmfully. So for me, knowing that we're all a part of this greater wholeness, it allows me to move through my world with just such great care. And then when I'm having an experience throughout the day, if it's particularly lovely, then I really set the intention, may this be what I contribute into the collective consciousness. And if I'm having a particularly challenging thing happen or a challenging day, then I try to really kind of minimize my outflow so that that's not what I'm contributing into the collective consciousness. And then just even having that thought, it then brings me into an awareness of, oh, yeah, what can I do to change my frequency? Because what I think and what I do is going to contribute into the collective consciousness, into collective awareness. And I want that to always be as beautiful as it can be. And when I pay too much attention outward into the things that are going quote unquote wrong in the world, it lowers my frequency. It makes me more susceptible to feeling the heavinesses of the world since I am very empathic. And then it reminds me, get back on my own tightrope, focus on where I'm going. And when I uplift myself, that's what I'm contributing into the collective consciousness. And I do think that that makes a huge difference. If each one of us just kept our own doorstep clean, the world would be so much more beautiful.
Yeah, it's so interesting, merging indigenous practices or self-realization of this constant that we refer to within Taoism as the primordial mother. It's an awareness, but transmuted to the human condition is the very mathematical equation that needs to be answered to acquire human beingness. That being whole with all things is a unified state. It doesn't require your participation. And furthermore, through inquiry, you will come to that said evidence for the now moment will show you manifestation, magic, healing. But there cannot be any evidence of a place, person, or thing. Witnessing physical healing for over 30 years. I mean, I got bit by the spiritual dragon. The first thing I was accustomed to was watching gangrenous flesh go back to pink in color in 40 minutes. Foot should have been amputated. Let me see. I've seen tumors disappear, bones fuse, gashes sealed before my very eyes. People are in comas, out of comas, click a finger. These things are just part of the experience that is just more evidence that that divinity exists, and it returns people back to that hopium that can be nurtured into a belief system and met with the experience that it is a knowing. And, so many people get very, very misled by the human condition. And as my teacher Lao Tzu, his dialogue for the monologue that is the primordial mother, he always refers to, imagine you're like a grain of sand, asking the beach, what are we doing today? Fall back into the beach and be realized. And there lies that individuality you spoke of that then merges back into a 40-foot view of the oneness, the unification, the ultimate now moment, that resonance that we speak of that can be met. It doesn't have to be this battle of the symbiotic relationship of yin and yang. It can be whole. And the evidence will be the proof in the pudding. You'll see it through the abilities, the lens of your own awareness that will show itself, or you will be forever in discontent in the mundane reality of the human condition, which will further validate, is your glass half empty or full? Well, in that circumstance, it's half empty, and it repeats itself because, as Oliver Twist would recognize, You want more, boy? Yes, sir. May I have another? The universe has no moral compass. It's self-realized by the evidence of what you ask for, you will receive. If you would like to experience what it feels like to want to be loved, I want to be in love with somebody. I want to have the perfect relationship. I want. Then the universe will be your very genie that will give you the experience of what it feels like to want to be in love. And this is the very discontent that we are met with. And that hall of mirrors, that is that very validating effect of yin to yang, as you mentioned, the light beings. Within Taoism, light is nothing more than the emission of all colors. And the absorption of all colors is yin. It's very, very quite evident when someone believes they do not have evidence of yin. It's furthermore a corrupted, diluted state of ego realization, because with one is another. That's the material state that we speak of. It doesn't have to be met with some ominous version of good and evil. It's just if you have more light, you have more dark. They're both the same. They're, when you turn around, you're going to have a back. If you turn your head over your shoulder, you're going to find that you have a shoulder blade, you have a butt cheek, you have a leg. You don't have to keep verifying that that's happening every day, because as you know, you merge with light. That is your validation that you have darkness, which would be yin and yang. But further inquiry and discovery, you will realize that for a Taoist, it is the void, which is the primordial mother, the womb of creation. That seed of yang is the material state that we live in. That is the light, as you speak of, that is more evidence of that primordial mother. The center point, the Wu Ji, is that encapsulating that as it oscillates and it condenses as what we call the primordial mother. The diamond of perfection becomes evident, saturates the physical flesh. You have dominion over that, and you are now able to direct with your attention, intention, and form things that would be superhuman. But that is a resonance and a cultivation through your teachers that have shown you the path of how to be self-realized, and how you teach that evidence-based mediumship, as you put it, is another profound awareness and epiphany, a Sherlock to your Watson and to many others who ever listen and are exposed to your incredible wisdom teaching. And that comes with a resonance. So it's like you don't have to do anything. Your participation is not required. As you step out of the way, that resonance will show you the evidence of that material state where you will be drawn to it. It's yours. That's the electromagnetism, the light spectrum. You look for that center point. That's your center point, which furthermore, through further symbiosis, sun to the earth is yang to yin, and that radiance of the sun, which is then transmuted from the inverted aspect of yin, which would be the moon, furthermore, the universe, you have this rippling effect where the rays of the sun show evidence of that electromagnetism, that light spectrum you refer to as the rainbow. Within indigenous practices, they call them chakras. We call them dantians, the energy elixir field. And that presents itself in the center of the rainbow. The Vesica point is the green and emerald and pink hue that is the sun, which most indigenous practices would refer to the rainbow body. And here we have all these indicators and validation of this incredible knowing that continually repeats itself through these practices. But I will concur and agree through the admission of your own evidence that everything has its unique individual signature and never to be dismissed. The student is the teacher is the student. There are a million ways up the mountain. There is no right or wrong. There is just evidence for your own validation. Your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. Anyone with an absolute truth, run in the other direction, because your absolute truth is yours and no one else's. And I love that wisdom teaching. Your teachers keep reiterating that over and over again. And just through your own experiences, the unified commune that we are having right now is that visceral experience, that heat that's starting to merge within your physical body. You feel it up your spine. That is evidence that this is true. And it doesn't matter what you say. You had me at hello. What are your thoughts on that?
I think what comes through is, of course, when we use words like moral compass, because the idea of morals and morality is very much a human concept. So I use those words very carefully, and it's a very slippery slope. But I do believe that this, all of creation, you know, goes way beyond solar systems, goes way beyond the universe, goes way beyond what my human mind can comprehend or what words I might choose could convey. But what's coming through very clearly is the fabric of all existence, the fabric of beyond existence, the fabric of source energy, and beyond that is love. Love will always want the best for all of creation, for all of reality, for all of existence. So I do believe in the inherent goodness of all of creation. I do believe in the inherent goodness of each and every one of us, even if during a lifetime we do things that are hurtful or harmful. At the essence of us all, since we're all individuated from that one beautiful source, we are inherently good, just not each one of us is expressing in a way that for me, I would consider that good. I've done things in my past where I think, oh, why did I do that? That's not at all who I want to be. And then I've been able to use that to change my way of being and not do those sorts of things anymore. So, what I believe and what I've been shown is just like the electricity flowing through the outlets in my house. Yeah, it doesn't have a judgment call. I can plug something into it and electrify what I'm using and get energy flowing through my device. Or I can stick a fork in there and really hurt myself. Or I can get into the outlet and touch the wires and kill myself. So the energy that's flowing is equal in everywhere and everything. It's flowing through us equally from what I've been shown, and we can tap into it and we can do things in this world that are loving or things in this world that are harmful. But I believe that there's these different echelons of energy and different echelons of flow. And so for me, what I have been shown very clearly is that each one of us, whether it's the light body, the soul, spirit guides, angels, whatever we want to call it, because terms don't really matter at this level, we're all having access to the same energy. However, when we are moving through our lives, truly being the best version of ourselves, and we're still being entrained to be the best versions of ourselves, and to draw that into this beautiful human play, this human consciousness, this three-dimensional world here. When we're doing awesome things and doing things that are helpful and kind and things that promote love, because things do expand through love. If you don't love a plant and don't tend to it and take care of it, it will die. If you don't love a child and tend to that child and take care of it, it will die, or it will become diseased, or it will become a human doing terrible things in this world. So I do believe that love is the essence of it all. And I'm not talking about that human kind of love that ebbs and flows and comes and goes, that romantic love. I'm talking about that agape love, that super huge overarching love that loves us unconditionally, loves us irrespective of how we're expressing in this world. However, what I do believe is that as we're tapping into this gorgeous, powerful energy, and we're tapping into love, and we're tapping into light and information, when we are doing things in this world that are kind and loving and powerful, then we are of a resonance that we are allowing ourselves to be entrained by the highest versions of ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves. And then we are wide open, and this energy can flow through us, animate us even more powerfully, empower us, energize us, and we can do great things. And we can do them powerfully, and we can do them meaningfully. However, if we're moving through this world doing things that's really out of resonance with what I consider source energy, really out of resonance with that agape love, then we, our own selves, are more constricted. Our cells are more constricted. We are blocking the flow of light. We are blocking the flow of energy. And then we are less successful at doing the things in this world that cause great harm. So I have been shown, at least in the verbiage that I know and understand, that there is a balancing effect in this universe. So the way that that helps me feel very empowered in this world is that I don't see the world as this fight between good and evil, because I do not believe that evil exists. I believe in the oneness of love, the oneness of light, the oneness of this beautiful creative life force energy. And this energy is intelligent beyond even what I could imagine. And so this energy would know what is love, what is kindness, what is resonance, what is going to help this beautiful created world expand, evolve, awaken, enlighten, and ascend in consciousness. Because the more that each one of us is open to love, we're loving our own selves, therefore we can love others, we can love this planet, we can love other species, then the more that we are open to drawing divine awareness even more fully and completely into this physical created world. Now, of course, I am using terminologies that makes it seem like there's duality, but when we're up in higher octaves, when we're up in higher frequencies, when we're in more expansive dimensions and densities, for me, what I've been shown, there isn't that duality. There isn't that polarity because it isn't necessary, it isn't needed. So for me, what I've been shown and what resonates with me is that all that there is love. And when there is love, then there is going to be an energy flowing more powerfully through anyone or anything that is expressing love and being love and doing kind things in this world and doing things that resonate with love. And then when we're doing anything that's the opposite to that, then we're out of resonance with love and we're going to be less energized to do anything that we're trying to do and to accomplish anything that we're trying to accomplish. So I do believe that there is something equal in the universe that my human mind might call a moral compass, but it's way above and beyond that. So, yes, I agree that this overarching energy is free flowing, but I do believe that there is a safety feature in place that anyone who's doing kind works and good works and love in this world, that energy is going to be much more available to them. And when they're not doing love, it's not like somebody is preventing them from being loving and kind, but their own selves, they're more constricted. Anyone doing, and I understand that there's various reasons that people do things in the world that look hateful and hurtful. Sometimes it is a chemical imbalance in the brain. Sometimes it was a brain injury that changed someone. Sometimes a part of their brain went offline that allowed them to feel empathy or compassion. There's all sorts of different reasons that play into why people make certain decisions that are made or are not listening to that higher portion of themselves, that higher frequency. But I do believe at the end of the day, what is of the fabric of this universe is love. And once again, so many people have misused that word and over romanticized it and make movies and cards and television shows that really limit it and really just infantilize it or whatever you want to say. But I'm talking about that overarching agape love, because love is expansive. Process theology, like I mentioned, is this concept that everything is in process, that even that which creates worlds and keeps them spinning and keeps them elevating and is creating this energy that I pull from and everyone pulls from, even that is in process of expanding and evolving and changing. And the reason why that brings me great comfort is because if some days I'm not at my highest and my best, well, there's always the next minute. There's always the next day. There's always the possibility of, well, that's okay. Even that which created me, even that which flows through me, even that which is, the ground of being, all that is, even that is in process. And so that actually brings me a lot of comfort when some people hear me say that, or some people have read that philosophy. Um, they feel like that's blasphemous, or they feel like, oh my gosh, what? No. And it's like, well, but for me, that's just this gorgeous interplay between creator and created, and being able to see myself as creator, being able to see myself as created, being able to witness and be able to be that which is witnessed, and being able to merge all of those and find that beautiful central kind of balance point of it is all going to be okay, because it just all is going to be okay. That seems like a paradox or just something counterintuitive. But at the end of the day, I get to start over the next second, the next minute, the next day. So for me, my rebirth happens every morning that I wake up, because I experience my life, I sleep, as I sleep, I get to refocus an even larger part of myself and my soul and spirit world. Because the other concept that really resonates with me is that the larger part of my soul, of my essence, is not even here in this physical realm anyway. It is in what I call the spirit world. Other people might call that heaven. They might call it the afterlife, the everlife, whatever. But the larger part of myself is still there with everybody else's souls and spirits. So each one of us that's here, only a very small fraction of our essence and our soul is here animating this body. And for me, what I've been shown is that we exist within the field of energy created by our soul, and then the soul coalesces and creates this physical body. And it came to that agreement at the moment of the egg and the sperm creating that spark of life and becoming that divine spark of life that now is within me. And I don't remember who said this. I learned it at a Zen retreat many years ago. There's a beautiful mantra like, inside of me is the fire. No, inside of me, oh my goodness, now I can't even remember it. Inside of me burns the fire I kindle, my heart the altar. So inside of me is the fire I kindle, my heart the altar. And so for me, it's pointing back that inside of me is the essence that creates worlds and keeps them moving and always invites us into subtler and subtler frequencies and higher octaves. But I am definitely aware of the fact that when you have a symphony, you have your high frequencies and you have your low frequencies, and they're all important for that whole beautiful symphony. So when I talk about low frequencies and high frequencies, or light and dark, I'm not talking about good and evil, because like I said, I don't actually even believe that evil exists. And so for me, when I can move through life recognizing that I can help change the fabric of the universe. I can help with the ascension of consciousness and drawing down into this physical realm even more divine awareness by simply focusing on what I can do, who I am, how do I show up in this world, how do I contribute love into this world. And so each day, that's one of my prayers that I wake up with on my head or in my mind, in my heart, is how can I be most utilized in this world today in a way that brings more love? How can I truly live my soul's calling, live as this being of light in this world, and show me? Because I'm always open to being expanded. I'm always open to drawing down into this beautiful physical form, divine awareness. And I do believe that, like many others before me have said, we are evolving to where we're at some point not going to be a carbon based life form anymore. We're evolving beyond the need of needing to be in a carbon based life form. That's humans as well as non human animals. Um, and as we all ascend, this earth as a sentient being ascends. As the earth as a sentient being ascends, everything who gets to call it home ascends. It's just beautiful symbiotic feedback sort of a loop. And at a certain point, Earth will get to be a beautiful neighborhood of heaven, so to say, where if people want to experience a physical form and a physical experience, they can. But there won't be that need anymore that has been in the past of duality for learning. I believe that we're really exponentially working our way out of that now.
Yeah, I mean, it brings the question, you show you want a Taoist in a past life. Everything is contracting and expanding, right back to the simplicity of the lens of a Taoist path. You're all things and nothing at the same time. Your choice is to realize that when you're at your lowest, you're at your highest. And so all of this conversation, all the intricacies of the finite mind, the personality, the expression of oneness, unity, divinity, the evidence of that through these experiences comes in the form of one question: is your glass half empty or full? I mean, that's it. That's where you get with the get down. And I'm a Pepsi challenge guy. I want to see evidence of that. I'll do the taste test with anybody. Show me what it is that you speak of, because embodying and merging with this present moment, you will experience what is visceral, kinesthetic, somatic. The tuning fork, the barometer to your reality is the physical flesh. Whether you ascend and there's evidence of nothing, I'm no body, no place, no person, no thing, well, show me what is the actual evidence-based effect of that, which will be in the form of crystallized material. You are bringing what you talk about, which is this love, which is a little within Taoism, that's like the basement entry level, because love is subjective. It can be a hallmark, a throwaway, which is redundant from a human condition perspective of love to you might be razor blades and bunny rabbits. To me, it's unicorns and rainbows. And there's a level of ascension that you move from that love subject-based realization to what we call gratitude, which quite frankly, I can give you a compliment of $5. You're going to get there real fast. And it happens with that entry level. You don't have to be merging towards something. And ultimately, accepting and allowing all things is that present moment, being now, which is the highest level of ascension. And so that in of itself is sort of, when you're unified, when you're all things, love is a facet of the diamond of perfection, but is it the super glue? That is questionable. I think a lot of people fall short because of that very misunderstood understanding of the human condition, of the limited finite mind that identifies as virtue signaling of love, the hallmark special. It's Valentine's Day, it's birthday, it's Christmas, it's Thanksgiving. These are the things I need to do as my moral responsibility within my human condition to emote these stages of awareness, because that's what it says on the card itself. And this is where people get a little bit lost. So you got past that as whole, because I measure my brain waves when I witness physical healings, which happens on a daily basis. I hit between 40, 100, maybe 400 hertz, depending upon who I'm channeling. I witness those physical healings. It doesn't go in line with, say, a Stephen Hawkins or whatever his name is, measure of consciousness, which he claims he has a scale of what the hertz frequency is. But in that moment, I'm not thinking about anything. Nothing moves the needle, because, just yesterday I have 6 kids. The youngest is 1, the eldest is 12. One of my kids fell off a play set, got a noggin on his head the size of a watermelon, and anyone else would rush him to the emergency room, do whatever. That present moment, which doesn't require me to get obsessed that I'm a father with a child in need, it's the present moment. And we all witnessed that massive welt the size of a watermelon disappear before our very eyes in about 2 seconds. This is just returning to that wholeness that is not separated. And when you get caught up in something that you feel as participation, it can be problematic, because it won't bear the result that you're looking for, which is unification, wholeness. And I really am totally blown away by how these indigenous practices meet just as all the wisdom teaching that you have through your self-evident mediumship and all the training that you put out that validates that through the experience. It's mind-boggling how that information, I think you refer to it as, we're all facets of consciousness, we're unique in our own way, but we're all the same. That is a beautiful way to summarize the experience of the human condition to the human being of all things, is that jump off point where you realize that the now is all you have and it doesn't require your participation. And that's the part where if you master the alchemical process, what we call the substance, the plasma, the Fajin, the Qi, this is a unified state, the presence of God, Tao, Buddha, universe. This brings everything back to whole. As we hold that resonance, it reminds others that that is who they really are. And then poof, we see a miracle. Poof, oh my goodness, Harry Potter ain't got nothing on this. This is the type of stuff that we continue to repeat and see is this evidence. And I love the way you talk about when you're in concert and commune with your divinity, whether it's through your teachers or just the present moment, however you're receiving it at that present moment, evidence of heat. This is more material. When I channel, let's do, I will walk out as if I'd been in a sauna for 3 hours. This is part of it. But there's interplay of that symbiosis, tremendous amount of heat and admission with the equivalent electromagnetic pulsing, which is a chill and a charge that would be equivalent to being in, the Atlantic at the same time as sitting on the sun itself. You're getting the equivalent of those merging of those potentials, which is divinity coming through and showing you that interplay. And then it becomes present through your physical flesh and it presents itself in that unification. And now you're off to the races, my dear friend.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that I think you and I are saying the same thing about love, if I'm understanding you. So, because when I talk about love and being the fabric of the universe, for me, it is that agape love. It is that overarching love. It is the love that is there regardless of anything. It isn't that romantic love of come and go, ebb and flow. You behave this way. You didn't say the right thing. It's not that at all. It is that true, honest to goodness, non-judgmental, unconditional love. And I can't remember which book I read this in, because I've read so many books over the course of my life. But when they did a study looking at people who would just send healing frequencies, whether it, I think maybe this might have been a Reiki study, but I'm not sure, because it's all the same energy. It doesn't matter what we call it. Quantum touch, Reiki, energy healing, blah, blah, blah. It's all the same for me. But what they were able to show is that if you don't know anything about the subject that you are trying to send this energy healing to, there is a limit to, at least as these particular practitioners were doing, to the benefits of that energy transmission that they were sending or wanting to channel or wanting to share. And it was done distant. It wasn't done with hands-on. But when they read a story about the person, this is the person's name. This is how many children they have. This is the challenges they've grown up with. These are the triumphs they've experienced. And they got to know the person and feel a sense of connection with them. And then they sent energy healing. They shared energy healing. They focused energy healing upon that person. Then that person had a quicker response. And I forget, like I said, I don't know how big of a study that was. I don't know how many people participated, but it was done scientifically as best that that can be done. And so, yes, it was shown that when you feel a sense of intimacy with someone, and that doesn't mean you even have to know them, it's just knowing someone's story, knowing how many kids they have, knowing the challenges that they've gone through, knowing that what their life has been like. Now all of a sudden, because I think it's because of mirror neurons, what we perceive and what we read and what we hear, our body processes all of that as though it's physiologically happening to us. And so what that has shown is that when you truly have a sense of care for someone, And then you are holding them in this vision of wholeness and health that has a stronger effect than if they're just like, here's a name, send some, hold this person in a vision of health and wellness.
Mm.
So for me, that really does come back to the effect and the reality, perceived reality, that when we feel interconnected with others, it gives us even more impetus to want to be of benefit to others. And it makes us a lot more powerful in what it is that we're here to do. One of the, I don't know, riddles or jokes or whatever I heard based on that is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? I can't remember if they said it was a physicist or a theologian that says, well, why is there a glass in the first place? And
Mm.
so I think maybe would be the theologian saying, well, why is there a glass in the first place? And the physicist would be like, well, what's the components of this glass? So you can take that all the way down to the essence of, well, why is there a glass in the first place? What is this container? What is this vessel that we have been gifted with to experience this expression of life from within? And then when we can become the vessel, when we can realize, oh, okay, well, there is no half full or half empty. There is no glass or no glassness. There is no is or non-isness. It just exists. It just is, even though I just said there is no is or non-isness. So I just love that philosophy of, if you can get even beyond seeing a container that would be either half full or half empty, and just realize that there's just always a flow of energy, and energy does not need to be contained. And in fact, it's better to not try to contain the energy, but to be this open flow, this open vessel through which it flows. Then we can come into a realization that we don't even need to be in a form to experience what I call, created reality, and what other people have called created reality. Because I do believe that when we can rise above the need for being in a physical form, then that allows us to tap into the part of us that is not in physical form. It allows us to tap into all that is, recognizing that that is going to flow through my filter, that is going to flow through my physical apparatus of a body and a brain. Because if I am in this lifetime the glass that is going to hold the medium and be either half full or half empty or just free flowing, then there's a reason for my being here. It wasn't random. It wasn't like, oh, okay, didn't really give it much thought. So I do believe that when I can recognize all of that, then I can also realize that everything I need is within me, within this physical form, because this physical form is used as an antenna, so to say, to tap into all of these dimensions that are around me, to draw into me the information that is going to be most helpful for me. I do pay very close attention to what I try to absorb and take in, whether that be through food or what I'm drinking or media that I'm looking at. When I start to recognize that my vibration is slowing down and getting denser and slower, then I can just recognize within myself, okay, well, maybe I need to start looking into different realities or absorbing different realities and absorbing different information. Because just as there is physical hygiene of a physical body, there's also spiritual hygiene. And I don't have to, I choose to pay attention to what's going on in my light body. Pay attention to what's going on in the energy field that surrounds me, because that is the medium that I move through this world, enveloped within, ensconced within. And I love that concept that a caterpillar does not necessarily, well, we don't know whether they know it or not, but we've been taught that caterpillars don't know that they're going to become a butterfly. And they turn into this soupy sort of just mucusy stuff as they're going from physical into a metamorphosis and an alchemical process into now this winged being that we call a butterfly, or in some cases moths. And so in all of that, there are the imaginal cells. So I just love the concept that throughout my life, yes, I've gone through processes that were challenging and difficult. My life has not been all rainbows and butterflies, as some people say. They'll say, oh, their life has just always been easy and they've just known this or that. And I would tend to think that maybe they just haven't been looking at the challenges, or just maybe have turned away, kind of done what's called spiritual bypassing. So I'm very much a big proponent of embracing all that I've experienced in life and not seeing any of it as wasted time, not seeing any of it as wasted energy, because it's all formed who I am today. And who I am today is going to um, help me become who I am tomorrow and the day after and the day after, knowing that I think you would use the terminology of effortless effort. And so for me, I love the concept of joyful effort. So if I need to do something in this world to have a certain outcome that I would like, that I would desire, then I am going to put effort into it, but I'm going to have it be joyful effort. And if something isn't joyful to me, then I need to either stop doing that or figure out how to do it differently, because whatever it is that I put out into this world, it is going to be embedded with and encoded with the energy that I was feeling as I was co creating it.
Mm.
So I just love the concept that we can simply tune our own human form as the antenna so precisely to that which we wish to see, that we can play our role. I can play my role in actually bringing that in to this three-dimensional world and help this three-dimensional world merge and blend and become higher consciousness, become a higher frequency, a higher octave, while also being much more holistic and encompassing all of the parts that are necessary to create that wholeness once again, or to uncover the wholeness, whatever words work the best there.
Well, amen to that. Amen to that. What an amazing realization. And this conversation has been such an experience. I would just finalize effortless action, effortless effort as zero participation. Once you remove yourself from the equation, it is just there. So less of the human condition or human response, and just now. It has been absolutely profound, the conversation that we're having, my dear friend. And furthermore, it just is resonant in both paths that we are walking. It is very much evidence of divinity and that exchange. So I want to thank you. I'm going to put your social media, social sphere, interweb under this podcast where people can find you. They can do individual sessions, group sessions. I want all my students, disciples, 126s, and subscribers. Now, the 126, just so you know, is not a cult of indoctrination. It's actually an app that I developed that takes you from zero to a hero in about 9 weeks. Basically, you have a well-mastered skill that you can remove your emotional and mental state inside of 126 seconds, like icons on a computer screen. You hit play, you become equivalent to 5 pina coladas, a full body massage, in 10 days in the Bahamas. This is the visual and audible experience creating a kinesthetic charge. That is evidence that you need, evidence-based in the 3D material. So in closing, I would ask you, what is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
My definition of spiritual consciousness is simply that, at least in my understanding, consciousness is the ground of all being. Everything arises from consciousness. At some point, everything will be enfolded back into consciousness. We are an expression of consciousness. We tap into it. We are it. We are inseparable from it. So consciousness, human consciousness, animal consciousness, spiritual consciousness, it's all a part of the greater wholeness that all weaves together to create this gorgeous holistic tapestry. So I would say that spiritual consciousness is just a much higher octave of consciousness. And it's there for us at any moment to live from, to embody, to embrace, to pull from, to contribute into, and to just simply be.
Beautiful. Hundreds of podcasts later, I think I'm 400, 600, whatever. Never heard the same answer, as I don't expect to, because these are unified sparks of divinity that we express through this conversation that is an experience, and it's a now moment. So once again, my dear friend, I'm very grateful that you spent your time sharing it with us today and evoking people to find themselves. And I furthermore want people to draw their attention to their path and go and find your material and book in a session, book in that you offer sessions, group sessions, all these types of things. Anything you want to add?
Nope.
And I want them to find you and experience what it is that your wisdom teaching brings to their forefront of awareness. This has been phenomenal, my dear friend. I'm very grateful for you, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I feel like I am up-leveled and uplifted simply by us coming together and creating a whole new field of energy that never existed before now.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and seafood Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.